See, all that hating, all that hate don't get you nowhere. Haters always gonna get theirs, man. They always gonna get theirs. News has broken. We didn't even know. Shout out to Livewire Sports. Shout out to the homie over there, man. Go sub up to Livewire Sports. Sheryl Swoopes. Y'all remember when Sheryl Swoopes was doing that disrespectful bias reporting on Caitlin Clark during the Dallas Wings game when she was a part of the telecast? They ended up firing her. Y'all remember all the hate and jealousy that Sheryl Swoopes and Lexie Brown was kicking over there on Gil's Arena during Caitlin Clark's rookie year and even before her rookie season even started? Y'all remember all of that? They have both been fired from under.
Nobody in the league was ready for the shockwave that blasted through the WNBA the moment the emergency announcement dropped. Phones buzzed. Reporters froze. Players stopped mid-practice as the league's official account posted a single ice-cold sentence that detonated across the internet like a bomb. 2 personnel have been immediately removed from their positions pending further investigation. Within minutes, the rumor mill lit up with one explosive claim. The removals were connected to the growing hostility surrounding Caitlin Clark, and the 2 names being whispered, shouted, and panicked over belonged to the last people anyone expected. In this fictional alternate universe version of events, the basketball world erupted at the shocking allegation that Lexie Brown and Sheryl Swoopes, the 2 voices who sparked the loudest criticism toward Clark, were suddenly facing the harshest professional consequences the league had handed down in years. Social media rioted. Commentators clashed. Fanbases waged digital war. The league tried to stay quiet, but the silence only made everything worse. Rumors of internal feuds, heated off-camera arguments, and behind-the-scenes power struggles exploded across timelines. And at the center of the storm, Caitlin Clark, silent, stunned, watching the chaos swirl around her rising superstardom like a hurricane she never asked for. But as the frenzy grew, one question grew louder than all the rest. If this is how the scandal starts, how far is the league willing to go once the full truth comes out? The answer was coming, and nobody was ready for the next blow. The scandal didn't start with a headline. It didn't start with a clip, a tweet, or a broadcast argument. It started long before that, months before the explosion, back in the early days of rising tension, growing jealousy, and a quiet storm that almost nobody recognized until it was too late. The league, the players, the media, everyone felt it, but nobody understood what was being built behind the scenes. When Caitlin Clark first stepped into the league, the energy shifted instantly. Fans flooded arenas. Tickets vanished. Jerseys sold out in hours. Entire broadcasts suddenly revolved around one narrative. The new face of the league had arrived. And while most people celebrated the rise, others, especially those who had spent years fighting for the spotlight, felt the ground shaking beneath them. Inside the league offices of WNBA, executives whispered about the Caitlin effect, the drastic spike in viewership, the exploding engagement numbers, the surge of new eyes on the sport. But in locker rooms, practice facilities, media rooms, and commentary booths, the vibe was shifting. Some players worried they'd be overshadowed. Some veterans felt their legacies being rewritten overnight. And some, like Lexie Brown and Sheryl Swoopes in this fictional universe, weren't shy about expressing frustration on air. It started subtly. A comment here, a critique there, a tone that felt sharper than the moment called for. To the average viewer, it looked normal, just analysis, just commentary, nothing serious. But fans noticed the patterns. They clipped the moments. They compared the reactions. They posted side-by-side videos demonstrating how dramatically the energy changed whenever Caitlin Clark's name came up. And soon, it wasn't just fans noticing. Behind the scenes, tensions escalated. Lexie, dealing with the internal battles that never get shown on camera, felt increasingly overshadowed by what she saw as hype-driven favoritism. She'd worked for everything she had, endless hours, endless sacrifices, only to watch a rookie absorb the oxygen of the entire league. Even when she tried to hide it, the frustration leaked into her tone. Producers saw it. Teammates noticed it. Staff whispered about it. Sheryl, on the other hand, carried a different weight. A Hall of Famer, a legend, a woman whose name shaped eras. She had fought through the hardest days of the sport, built the foundation others stood on, and survived battles the new generation could never imagine. And now, suddenly, The spotlight was shifting to someone fresh, someone young, someone whose fame was skyrocketing faster than anything the league had ever seen. It wasn't jealousy, it was fear. Fear of being erased. Fear of losing the power she once held. Fear of watching history move on without her. Every time she spoke about Caitlin Clark, it was like decades of pressure cracked through her voice. Commentators debated whether it was personal, emotional, or simply tough love from an old-school veteran. But the truth was far more complicated. In this fictional storyline, the resentment had been building long before anyone knew. Inside the league offices, executives pretended nothing was wrong. They needed the momentum, the millions of new fans, the headlines, the economic explosion Caitlin brought. But they also saw the backlash brewing from within. They watched as social media clipped every harsh comment. They monitored the growing divide between old and new fans. They analyzed every tense on-air moment from Lexie and Sheryl. And with every passing week, the unease grew stronger. The tipping point came during a closed-door media summit, a gathering meant to unify the broadcast voices and reset the tone of the season. Instead, it became the spark that ignited the fire. Witnesses claimed the room felt tense the moment Lexie entered. Sheryl sat 3 seats away, arms crossed, refusing to make eye contact. Caitlin Clark wasn't present, but her name was on every slide, every chart, every strategy presentation. The league's message was clear. Caitlin was the engine now, the ratings driver, the priority. According to sources in this fictional storyline, Lexie pushed back hard. She questioned the obsession. She questioned the imbalance. She argued the league was building a monster they couldn't control. Sheryl chimed in, her frustration boiling over as she challenged the league's narrative, saying the newcomers were being handed opportunities the legends had to bleed for. Voices rose. Chairs shifted. People stared. A staffer later claimed the tension was so thick you could feel it vibrating through the walls. But the moment everything changed was when a heated exchange, one that shouldn't have left the room, was leaked anonymously online. A muffled audio clip. Nothing crystal clear, but enough to ignite a firestorm. Enough to make fans believe Lexie and Sheryl had crossed a line. Enough to push the league into panic mode. And from that moment on, everything spiraled. A faction of fans turned on them. Creators made videos dissecting every word. The narrative twisted, sharpened, and grew more vicious by the hour. And suddenly, the WNBA wasn't dealing with a media hiccup. It was dealing with a full-blown civil war between fan bases, players, and commentators. The league had to act. And in this fictional universe, they did. What they did next shocked everyone. The league headquarters of WNBA were supposed to be quiet that morning. Crisis meetings usually happened behind tinted glass, sealed hallways, guarded doors. But today, on the day everything exploded, the atmosphere was different. Staff whispered. Executives rushed. Phones rang nonstop. The tension hit like humidity, thick and suffocating, the kind that makes every breath feel stolen. Everyone knew something catastrophic was coming, but nobody knew how fast it would drop. It began with an emergency meeting called at dawn. Executives poured into the top-floor boardroom, some half-dressed, some shaking, some clutching tablets as though they were life support equipment. The room was silent until the commissioner entered, placing a single file on the conference table. No one spoke. No one blinked. They all knew the contents of that file were the reason they were awake before sunrise. Inside the file were transcripts, leaked messages, audio fragments, and internal reports. Every controversial detail connected to the escalating tension surrounding Caitlin Clark and the increasingly hostile commentary from Lexie Brown and Sheryl Swoopes in this fictional universe. For weeks, the league had tried to manage the narrative, but the audio leak from the private media summit, capturing an argument that spiraled far beyond criticism, had pushed everything past the breaking point. The commissioner inhaled sharply and said the 2 words nobody expected to hear. It's time. Silence. It's time to remove them. A wave of shock hit the room. Even the executives who suspected this moment was coming weren't ready for the weight of it. Removing these 2, both prominent voices, one an active player and one a revered legend, meant rewriting the league's public image. It meant choosing sides, whether they admitted it or not. It meant telling the world that the internal fractures were deeper than anyone guessed. One executive whispered, "Once we do this, there's no going back." The commissioner pressed their palms flat against the table. There's already no going back. Moments later, staff were notified to prepare the official statement. The legal team was scrambled. PR strategists were put on standby. And deep inside a private office, a red button was clicked, sending the announcement to be drafted, approved, and scheduled. But before the league could control the narrative, someone else detonated it. A staffer inside the building, anonymous, hidden, terrified, had already leaked the morning's agenda. Not the decision itself, but the fact that Lexie Brown and Sheryl Swoopes were under internal review. The internet caught the scent immediately. Post after post went viral. They're getting removed? This is bigger than we thought. Is this the first WNBA media purge? Caitlin Clark's haters finally facing consequences, wow. Within minutes, the story caught fire. And once the flames started, nothing could stop them. Meanwhile, Lexie Brown walked into her team facility unaware of the chaos happening above her. She'd spent the past few weeks juggling criticism, opinions, tense exchanges on air, and the online war that followed her every move. She thought the worst was behind her. She was wrong. Her coach pulled her aside, face pale, hands shaking. "You need to see this," he said, handing her a phone. Her eyes scanned the leaked agenda, and her blood turned cold. "Internal review? What the?" Her voice cracked. "This is about that? That dumb leak? That stupid edited audio clip?" But her coach didn't answer. He looked away, as if even making eye contact felt dangerous. At the same time, across town, Sheryl Swoopes was finishing a morning radio segment when her producer stopped her at the door. "You're not going to like this," he muttered. She frowned. "What now?" He showed her the trending topic. She stared at the screen in disbelief, then in anger, then in something far deeper, fear. "This is a joke," she finally whispered. "A very sick joke." But it wasn't. And when the league's emergency press conference went live, both women knew their fate was sealing itself in real time. The commissioner stepped up to the podium, flanked by stone-faced executives. Cameras pointed. Microphones extended. The world held its breath. "Effective immediately," the commissioner announced. "2 individuals have been relieved of their responsibilities pending further action due to conduct detrimental to league unity and professionalism." The room erupted. Reporters shouted. Flashes burst like fireworks. Tweets flew instantly. Live-stream chats exploded. Everyone demanded the same answer. Who? But the commissioner refused to say the names, because the league expected to drop the names in a controlled statement an hour later. Except their plan fell apart instantly. Someone inside the room leaked it the second the words left the commissioner's mouth. Lexie Brown and Sheryl Swoopes. Screenshots flooded timelines. Fans lost their minds. Some celebrated. Some were horrified. Some insisted justice had finally come. Others called it a witch hunt. The league's attempt to maintain control turned into a full-scale riot across the internet. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark sat in her apartment, stunned, silent, overwhelmed. She hadn't asked for this. She hadn't wanted consequences this severe. She had never said a word publicly about the criticism. But now, her name was tangled into the downfall of 2 major figures. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Messages from teammates, friends, coaches, media, even league insiders. One message stood out. This is only the first domino. Inside the WNBA headquarters, panic spread as the reaction spiraled far beyond expectations. Executives argued, PR directors shouted, lawyers warned, and crisis teams scrambled. The goal had been to protect the league's image, yet the decision had split the fan base into warring armies. And then came the twist nobody saw coming. A second leak. Not audio, not a transcript, not a screenshot, a video. A grainy, shaky, 3-second clip from the media summit that had started the entire investigation. It wasn't clear. It wasn't complete. But it showed just enough to reignite the firestorm. A blurred figure, believed to be Lexie, slamming a hand on the table. A second figure, believed to be Sheryl, leaning forward with visible anger. A moderator stepping in, voices rising, and one line barely audible. She's being protected, and we all know it. The clip exploded across every platform. Millions watched it within an hour. The league tried and failed to take it down. Fan theories multiplied. Comment sections turned into battlegrounds. And the pressure on the league tripled. Inside headquarters, executives realized something terrifying. This wasn't the end. This wasn't even the peak. This was the first twist, and the fallout hadn't even begun. Because the next leak, the next decision, the next reveal, would change everything. The dust had barely settled when the entire basketball world suddenly realized something terrifying. The fallout from Lexie Brown and Sheryl Swoopes' downfall was only the beginning. Far from calming things down, it sent a shockwave of panic, anger, and desperation across the entire WNBA ecosystem. What started as a scandal about two individuals had now evolved into something much bigger. A full-scale identity crisis for a league that had never seen this kind of internal war unfold so publicly. The fear wasn't just in the eyes of players. It was spreading through front offices, media partners, sponsorship reps, and team executives. Everyone wanted to know one thing. Was this the moment the league finally snapped? Because for years, there had been tension beneath the surface. Quiet enough to ignore, but strong enough to split the league in half if something ever pushed too hard. Now that someone had finally pushed, the cracks were widening faster than anyone could control. And at the center of this storm, Caitlin Clark. Not because she asked to be the center, not because she said anything controversial, but because she was the lightning rod, the player whose presence exposed every insecurity, every resentment, every power struggle simmering inside the league. And with Lexie and Swoopes taken down for letting their bitterness go too far, everyone else was terrified they might be next. The league scrambles to reclaim control. Behind closed doors, executives moved like a team trying to stop a house fire with buckets of water. Every hour brought new debates, new arguments, new fears. Everyone seemed to have a different idea of how to fix the situation, and that chaos only made things worse. Some argued that the league needed to punish more players to set an example. Others insisted the league should apologize to Caitlin Clark and distance itself from her attackers. A few demanded new media guidelines to stop players from trash-talking rookies. And a surprising number admitted, quietly but honestly, this should have been handled years ago. Now it's too big. But perhaps the most shocking part? No one, not even the top officials, agreed on what the league's identity should be moving forward. Was it a league driven by veterans? Was it a league driven by rising stars? Or, like it or not, was it now a league driven by Caitlin Clark? The executives didn't say it out loud, but the fear was unavoidable. If the league mishandled this crisis, even slightly, they risked alienating half the fan base, dividing the locker rooms, and turning sponsors against them. This wasn't just a PR problem. It was an existential problem. The locker rooms grow more divided. While the executives scrambled, the players were living in a very different reality. The firing of Lexie Brown and Sheryl Swoopes had become the biggest locker room conversation the league had seen in years. Some players whispered, they deserved it. Others muttered, this went too far. But the most powerful comment, the one that kept spreading like wildfire, was, if they got fired, who's next? Veterans who had spent years shaping the league's culture were suddenly terrified of expressing their opinions. Younger players, many of whom admired Caitlin Clark, finally felt like they had permission to speak up about the bullying and gatekeeping they'd experienced. A silent war was forming. One side believed the league should protect its established stars, no matter what. The other believed the league had been protecting the wrong people for too long. Both sides truly felt they were fighting for the soul of women's basketball. Caitlin Clark's reaction surprises everyone. Despite being at the center of all the chaos, Caitlin Clark stayed quiet publicly. No interviews. No emotional statements. No social media rants. But sources inside the locker room revealed that her reaction was far more surprising and mature than anyone expected. Instead of celebrating Lexie and Swoopes being fired, she felt uncomfortable. Caitlin reportedly told her teammates, I don't want anybody losing their job because of me. I just want to play. But this only fueled the narrative even more. Because while Caitlin Clark genuinely didn't want to be the cause of somebody's downfall, the league couldn't escape the truth. She now had more influence than any other player. Her words mattered. Her silence mattered. Her reaction mattered. And for the league, that was both a blessing and a nightmare. Because if Caitlin Clark ever decided to speak publicly about the negativity she'd faced, it would explode. Sponsors would get involved. Networks would demand accountability. Players would be forced to pick sides. Entire franchises could be shaken. Executives were praying she stayed quiet. But the world was waiting for her to speak. The fans erupt, and they're not holding back. Online, the fans were experiencing the scandal in real time, and they weren't handling it quietly. What had started as debates had grown into a full-scale digital war. Clark fans felt vindicated, believing the league had finally acknowledged the harassment she'd endured. Veteran defenders claimed the punishment was excessive and reactionary. and general sports fans treated the entire situation like a live drama series unfolding in front of their eyes. But the most dangerous reaction came from new viewers, the millions of fresh fans who discovered the league through Caitlin Clark. They felt the league had been unwelcoming, hostile, even combative toward the player who brought unprecedented attention. They were clear. If you don't treat Caitlin right, we're gone. And for a league fighting desperately for viewership, that was the biggest threat of all. The backdoor meetings get heated. As fan tension surged, league officials held private crisis meetings that grew more chaotic by the hour. Some inside sources described the atmosphere as combative, panicked, and borderline explosive. One executive allegedly shouted, "We can't lose sponsors because players can't control their jealousy." Another shot back, "We can't build our entire league around one rookie." The truth was simple and frightening. Both were right, but both were wrong. And while they argued, the situation continued spiraling. Veterans began to turn on each other. Perhaps the most unexpected twist came from the veterans themselves. For years, many of them worked together, supported each other, and tried to elevate the league. But now, the scandal had created a new tension, one that split even longtime teammates. Some veterans felt betrayed by Lexie Brown and Sheryl Swoopes for allowing their dislike of Caitlin Clark to overshadow professionalism. Others felt the league betrayed them by firing respected figures so quickly. Former allies stopped talking. Social media subtweets multiplied. Teammates started questioning loyalties. What began as a controversy had now become a civil war within the veteran community, a war that threatened to break locker rooms apart from the inside. The league fears the next domino. The scariest part? Every executive knew this wasn't over. Firing two people didn't make the resentment disappear. In fact, it made everyone more paranoid, more angry, more emotional, because now the league looked unpredictable, willing to take down well-known names without hesitation. And while some saw this as progress, others saw it as a warning that nobody was safe, a warning that personal opinions were now punishable, a warning that the league was changing in ways that many longtime insiders weren't ready for. The next domino was coming. No one knew who it would be, but everyone knew it was coming. If the first scandal shook the league, the second one nearly broke it. Because just as the WNBA was trying to wrestle control back after the firing of Lexie Brown and Sheryl Swoopes, something far more dangerous ignited. Something the league had feared for years but never believed would actualize. A full-scale player rebellion. Not the kind of rebellion with protests or walkouts. Not the kind with angry speeches or dramatic social media posts. This rebellion was quieter, strategic, coordinated, and worst of all, it started at the top. The veterans decide they've had enough. It began with small conversations in private group chats, then escalated into late-night phone calls, then grew into a secret coalition of veterans who believed the league was abandoning them for the Caitlin Clark generation. For years, the league had built its identity around longtime players, women who fought through extremely low salaries, empty arenas, and minimal media attention. They felt they earned the right to shape the future. Now suddenly, all of that was being overshadowed by one rookie. And for some, that was humiliating. One veteran reportedly told teammates, "We built this league. Now they're pushing us out because she's more profitable." Another echoed, "If they can fire Swoopes like that, none of us matter anymore." These weren't players who hated Caitlin personally. They hated what she represented, change they didn't control. The coalition makes its move. Their plan wasn't to attack Caitlin Clark directly. That had already backfired on Lexie and Swoopes. Their plan was to attack the league's leadership. They wanted reforms, negotiation power, stronger influence over rule changes, assurance that veterans wouldn't be discarded in the next controversy. And above all, they wanted the league to stop treating Caitlin Clark as if she were the center of the universe. So the coalition delivered an unofficial message behind the scenes. If you keep prioritizing her over the rest of us, we will make things difficult. Executives panicked. This was the nightmare scenario. Veterans threatening disruption right when the league was trying to expand its fan base and repair its public image. The league responds and fails miserably. Leadership rushed to schedule private meetings with veteran representatives, hoping to calm them down. But instead of reassuring them, executives made the worst mistake possible. They downplayed their concerns. One executive reportedly said, "We're not prioritizing Caitlin Clark, the fans are." Another said, "This is just temporary. Everyone benefits from the attention she brings." From a business standpoint, This was true. From a power standpoint, it was catastrophic. The veterans left the meeting angrier than before. To them, the message was clear. The league didn't care what they thought. The league didn't fear losing them. The league was betting its future on a rookie. And that was the moment something snapped. The locker rooms turned cold. The next few days were filled with unusual tension across multiple teams. Players who used to joke around now walked past each other without speaking. Team dinners became quiet. Practices felt heavy. Coaches noticed the energy shift instantly. But none of them had the authority to address the deeper issue. Some veterans began treating younger players with suspicion. Some rookies felt pressured to choose sides. Some teammates who had been close suddenly stopped trusting each other. It didn't matter which team you played for. The divide could be felt everywhere. The league had unintentionally created factions within its own workforce. And once a locker room divides emotionally, it rarely heals quickly. The media smells blood. When the media caught wind of internal tension, the coverage intensified instantly. Sports commentators began asking uncomfortable questions. Is the league losing control of its players? Have veterans been pushed aside for Caitlin Clark's spotlight? Is this becoming a one-star league? The more media personalities debated these topics, the more the narrative spiraled out of control online. Veterans are jealous. Caitlin's presence is ruining the league. The WNBA doesn't respect its own players. Caitlin didn't ask for any of this. Every headline, every clip, every viral comment added fuel to a fire the league was barely containing. Executives were watching their public image collapse in slow motion. Caitlin Clark feels the pressure. Through all of this, Caitlin Clark kept trying to focus on basketball. But even she could sense something had changed. Friendly opponents had become cold. Conversations she used to enjoy now felt awkward. The tension in the air was unmistakable. She wasn't naive. She understood what was happening. She told her inner circle, "I didn't want any of this. I just want to play." But wanting peace didn't stop the fallout. Her presence alone had become a symbol, and people weren't arguing about her anymore. They were arguing about what she represented. Change, new fans, new money, a shifting balance of power. And for some veterans, that was threatening. Executives fear a full mutiny. Behind closed doors, panic reached its peak. League officials feared that if they didn't address the rebellion soon, they could face potential strikes, media boycotts, public callouts, internal sabotage, massive rifts in team chemistry. Executives held emergency meetings that lasted late into the night. They discussed new veteran incentives, better salaries, locker room support programs, public statements promoting unity. But none of it felt like enough. Because the problem was no longer about players or media or policy. It was about control. The league no longer had it. And the veterans had realized they could take it back. And just when the league thought IT couldn't get worse, a confidential memo was leaked. A memo that revealed everything. Private discussions, arguments about favoritism, internal fears about losing fans, plans to reshape the league around Caitlin Clark, and the belief that veterans were expendable. The leak hit the internet like a nuclear bomb. Fans exploded. Media exploded. Players exploded. And the coalition of veterans knew they now had something far more powerful than a quiet rebellion. They had leverage. And now, after everything you've just witnessed, the leaked memos, the rebellion inside the locker rooms, the secret alliances, the exposed favoritism, and the league spiraling so far out of control it barely resembles the one fans thought they knew, there's only one question left. How much deeper does this madness go? Because trust me, what you've seen so far isn't even half of the chaos tearing apart this league behind closed doors. Not when veteran star Maya Lancaster is preparing to go public with a statement that insiders claim will detonate everything. Not when rising rookie Jade Marlowe has vanished from social media after being pulled into the controversy she never asked for. Not when former league executive Tara Winslow is threatening to release recordings that supposedly reveal the exact moment the league decided to sacrifice certain players to protect its own financial interests. Not when whispers are spreading that the anonymous whistleblower behind the memo leak isn't a staff member, but a player. And if that turns out to be true, it means this league isn't fractured. It's at war with itself. Players versus executives. Veterans versus rookies. Coaches versus the system. Fans versus the truth. Every day, more secrets spill out. Every hour, another shocking reveal drops. Every minute, someone else takes a side. And the scariest part? The next twist is coming sooner than anyone thinks. So if you're still here, if you're still holding on, don't even think about stopping now. Not when the tension is peaking. Not when the league is hanging by a thread. Not when the biggest bombshell in this entire saga is about to explode. Hit like, smash subscribe, and turn on notifications right now, because the next chapter, the final chapter, the one that changes everything we thought we knew,